The technology that we want to present and talk about is around data protection, but I am hoping that by the end of this I can convince you a little bit that protection is really morphing and evolving, and it is becoming something a little more exciting than what data protection and backup isn't maybe necessarily so exciting, but hopefully we can kind of make it that for you guys. The way this is going to go is now it's not working. There we go. Is I'm going to do an introduction both around data protection, IBM a little bit, the next generation of data protection, what that means. Christian is then going to talk about the technology around Spectrum Protect Plus. So that's the solution we want to talk to you guys about today. Now, I'm the business development executive for the entire storage software portfolio at IBM within storage, not all software, but within storage. We happen to be focusing the last, I would say, 60 to 90 days around, or 90 to 180 days around data protection in our Protect products and technology. And then after Christian does a technology review of the product, there's going to be a demonstration of the product, which I think, demos can be but I think this is pretty exciting and kind of next generation as well, especially when you see it coming from IBM. And then also in the room is Jim Smith. Jim is going to help support us with any, you guys tend to be a little technical, like to go a little bit deep. Jim is our guy to help us do that. He's a lead architect on the Protect and Protect Plus products. So the first thing I think I should introduce to you guys, because IBM this is the first time we've actually presented to you guys, is that I don't know if a lot of people know in storage, IBM has a lot of marquee and a lot of gravitas, right? So we've been named the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for the last 2 years in a row, not just one, but 8 of our products. Of course, we have a lot of products. We're the number 1 in software-defined storage. We have a pretty huge portfolio of about 10 or 12 different products that help make up our software-defined storage portfolio. Number 1 in analytics, obviously around Watson and a lot of things that you do. And you'll tend to find that IBM does a lot of marketing around corporate marketing that you'll see on TV around Watson and AI. We've actually evolved the name from cognitive to AI. Not so much around product marketing, but we're helping to evolve and to change that. Obviously the number 1 in global IT financing. We do a lot to help our customers from a financing standpoint. We're the number 2 storage company in the world, and I don't know if a lot of folks knew that. 19 of the top 20 banks leverage IBM technology, and 87% of the Fortune 100. And to add to this, Spectrum Protect, our data protection solution, is the number 2 product within the market space, both from a revenue standpoint as well as from how we're rated from a Gartner standpoint. We'll talk to you a little bit about that. So to start with maybe a why question, right? Why another backup product or another data protection product? There are over 100 data protection products in the market today. What makes us think that having yet another one is advantageous to the business or what we're trying to do or trying to accomplish? And I think it stems from 2 things, right? The number 1 thing is, as I've said, we have the number 2 data protection technology in the world. Why would you think we need another one? This technology, as Stephen said, ADSM, TSM, Spectrum Protect, that's part of the naming evolution of the product, has been around for 25 years. Now, because it's been around for 25 years, there are some pros and there are some cons. The pros around a 25-year-old technology is it has seen everything, right? There isn't a single corner case that our Protect solution can't really go and solve. We've had a lot of, when customers call in, they have this particular challenge, development gets on it, we fix it and we move on. In addition, it has a lot of capabilities to support multiple backup targets, as you'll see, right? So as the industry evolves from a target perspective, first it was tape, then it was ETL, then it was dedupe technologies, then it was cloud, right? We have the ability to support all of that, so that's fantastic. The downside that comes with 25-year-old technology is it's 25 years old. There's a little bit of legacy to it. There's a little bit of inflexibility that comes with the product. If you want to try to do something new or innovative, you kind of have to adhere to how the code was written and developed in order to do that. And sometimes that doesn't allow for the most amount of flexibility or the greatest ease of use when it comes to that product. So it is for those reasons. Well, and you combine that with the fact that also you hear IBM talk a lot about cognitive or AI, but it's also the ability to now we're seeing customers who want to be able to leverage the data that lives inside their firewall to be able to do more things with that information, right? Ginny, our CEO, likes to talk about this 80% of the data that is within the corporation that isn't unlocked, right? One of the greatest ways to be able to do that, if you protect your data properly, you're backing up 100% of your data, how do you then turn it into a good reuse set of capabilities? How do you be able to use that information within your business to actually turn a competitive advantage? So it is for those two reasons and those two things that we went off and we developed and worked with folks to build Spectrum Protect Plus. Right? So Spectrum Protect, obviously, plus this coming from the Protect family, right? And the plus meaning kind of this next generation, this evolution in what we're talking about data protection. So we don't necessarily like to talk about Spectrum Protect Plus under the term data protection or backup or recovery. We talk about it as an industry-proven data reuse solution, right? And when it comes to reuse, one of the number one use cases of reusing data, not necessarily the number one use case, you hope it's not number one, but a important reason to have that data copy is obviously for recovery, right? But also probably what's moving up into the number one spot about using data is the reuse set of capabilities, whether it be test and development or reporting and analytics, or maybe the team needs to do patch management. But there's always seems to be a case within IT for the need to be able to reuse data copies. And what we're trying to do with Spectrum Protect Plus is enable that set of capabilities to help the business kind of push forward and use that information, as well as have those copies of data, copies of information available to be able to do system recovery. So the solution supports VMware and Hyper-V today, as well as applications, both physical and virtual. Christian will talk a little bit more down at the technical level about how we do like physical servers or when it comes to applications around Oracle and SQL. If you think about our entire portfolio from Spectrum Protect, which we actually have a product called Spectrum Protect for VE, Spectrum Protect for virtual environments. Spectrum Protect Plus is the evolution of VE and will soon replace VE, but the net new going forward is Spectrum Protect Plus for helping to do protection around those particular environments. But also, as I said before, we're trying to elevate protection into the whole data reuse. You're also going to see some advances. I talked a little bit about the fact that it's not always easy with a 25-year-old technology to kind of make some of the changes that we want to be able to make and enable that flexibility. But some of the great features that have come within Spectrum Protect Plus, including being built on top of a RESTful API, is the ability to kind of be able to talk to other applications. One of those other applications is Spectrum Protect. We'll show you some examples of what we do today. And as we roll forward, capabilities around things we do around service level agreements and that sort of thing, the new ways in which customers want to have access to data or protect their information, you'll start to see come to the forefront of Protect as a new way to be able to enable their backups. So we're pretty excited about that. So another reason why we kind of evolved our protection methodology and our protection story is time and time again we're seeing from customers or hearing from customers is it's not just about backup anymore, right? It's about the ability to do operational recovery or data management or that sort of thing in conjunction with long-term recovery, long-term archive or long-term backup for compliance reasons, corporate governance, or that sort of thing. And then depending on what industry I'm in, the need to actually do archival, right? And so the nice thing is by the introduction of Spectrum Protect Plus, we have this ability to be able to do some very interesting things from an operational recovery standpoint where it is very, very fast, keep the business up and running, the ability to offload that information into our Spectrum Protect portfolio, as well as combine that with our archiving technology to be able to provide a solution that fits the gamut for an entire corporation, large or small. You'll hear IBM talk a lot about modernize and transform. That's kind of one of the mainstays that they talk about when they talk to customers, right? But what does it actually mean? So when you're talking about modernizing backup or modernizing your data protection environment, what does that mean to a customer? So I find time and time again, you go in and one backup is one of those things that it has kind of two functions. One, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And number two, right, it's an insurance policy, right? I want to keep the cost down when it comes to data protection, and I really want to focus on other things on my business. One of the great things about Spectrum Protect Plus is it kind of opens up the door for ways to be able to do other things in both lower cost, but keep your business up and running. So costs have come down in these next generation data protection solutions, no matter who you're talking to in the industry, right? A lot of the costs have come down both for initial implementation costs, but over the long term, the costs have come down. So you're actually saving money by deploying newer capabilities and newer technology. In addition, things around performance have improved, and I don't necessarily mean getting the data from point A to point B. I'm talking more about things like recovery time objective, recovery point objective, adding new things like version recovery objective, geographic recovery objective. These are all net new things that are coming in, right? And so now these newer solutions have the ability in a modern data protection solution to be able to do this. Management is much easier. There's been a lot of work done at the UI level with a lot of different products and technologies, but specifically Spectrum Protect Plus around design thinking. How do I keep the number of clicks down? How do I make people's lives easier? How to make people's jobs easier? Another reason to modernize your protection environment. A lot of net new technologies are really connected into the cloud now. It's not a big struggle to be able to support things like cloud object storage and that sort of thing, right? A lot of new solutions do that. And probably most importantly is the new enhancements around business agility. And this is really where it comes into the data reuse set of capabilities. And there are multiple different reuse use cases, right? So we talk about recovery, but when it comes to reuse, recovery is really just a use case of reuse. Disaster recovery, the ability to bring data up into a remote location in case something happens locally. Test and dev and DevOps, kind of the new agile development methodology that's going in a lot of businesses. The ability to reuse data quickly, easily, and seamlessly, especially fresh data, makes a big difference to how folks actually look at and utilize that information so that they don't get, it's less buggy, they're up and running faster. The ability to bring that data up quickly, right? You're not waiting for streams of data anymore, has a big impact on how test and development organizations work and how they thrive. The ability to copy that data to multiple locations, follow the sun methodology for being able to do for being able to do test and dev operations really helps businesses be competitive, especially in a global economy. The reporting and analytics capabilities. So again, it's not just DevOps or test and dev that have the need for data copies, right? And we shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves to think about the need for data copies only supporting these things. Anytime any line of business needs a copy of data for anything, this solution has the ability to enable those lines of businesses to have quick access to that information. A good example is the marketing department, right? They want to be able to run analytics across their data set to make real-time decisions about buying habits or buying patterns that are happening in my particular organization. The need to be able to do that, right, and be the faster you can make those decisions, the more competitive your business can be, the more agility your business has. Things like patch management, maybe IT needs a copy of the data to be able to do things like interesting patch management. Hey, I want to test out this application. Does it fit in our particular build? Let's test it, let's tear it down, that sort of thing. So for any reason you need a copy of data, we have the ability to provide that copy to you. In addition, there are different constituents that are really, that care about what's going on when it comes to protection these days. It's kind of evolved beyond just what's going on in IT, right? If you look at it from a CIO level, they have needs, right? Their needs at the highest level are, one, to make sure the business is always up and running, right? They also have the need, right, to be able to enable new revenue generating capabilities, right? In addition, they also have this concept and this need to be able to reduce cost. The lines of business, right, are being told by the CIO, right, that they have these particular needs. So they have needs to be able to, again, run these particular reports that they need to be agile, right, to support the line of business, or the development organization needs access to copies of this information to be able to be successful. IT has to then turn around and answer those business needs, whether it be keep the business up and running, right, enable faster access to the information, and how do I do that? And then also the ability to lower infrastructure costs. They're being asked to do a lot more with less, right? And the skill sets we're noticing, especially around when it comes to data protection, who goes to school to be a data protection person, right? It's not so interesting, right? Especially in the days of apps and quick and ease and that sort of thing. There needs to be a lot more ease of use and a lot more ability to be able to take advantage of these things without it being super complex, right? They need to be able to, and they've got other things that they're doing within the business, so there's a lot more agility that is required within the business. So again, if you look at it from the infrastructure team, the knowledge workers, the folks that are sitting around doing their daily job every day, need to have the ability to recover their information and just continue to be up and running, right? They just can't tolerate downtime. The line of business, right, has this need to be able to have fresh data all the time, right? And the ability IT sometimes struggles around the ability to provide these fresh data sets. So if you think about the fact that it's not uncommon for all of the businesses that we ever deal with, right, to have a line of business go and ask IT for a copy of data, they've got to do what, right? They've got to do a few different things. They've got to find a place to stream that data back to. They've got to go find the right copy of that data someplace, right? And then they have to either stream it off of tape, stream it off of disk, right? And then that data kind of sits there and sits around for long periods of time, right? So it's time consuming to provision that capacity, right? And it's hard to be able to manage that capacity once it's sitting out there, and what do I do with it? And it then chews up and it uses more space at more costs, right? The flip side to that is if I can't provide that data fast enough, what do you have? You end up with shadow IT, right? You have IT who will go in, maybe a database administrator trying to do some test dev operations, and they actually spin up copies of data into the cloud and say, look, I'm not going to deal with you guys. I'm going to go run over here and do this type of thing. So it's imperative from a cost standpoint, and it's imperative from a business agility standpoint to be able to do this. And then at the end of the day, right, at the CIO level, right directly to IT, lower costs, right? Do more with less, do more with less, do more with less, but also don't let the business suffer. Make sure it's up and running 100% of the time. So when we think about, when it comes to next generation data protection solutions or data reuse capabilities, what are the different things that are needed? And Christian will go into kind of each one of these things and how Spectrum Protect Plus is able to do these, right? But first of all, the solution that is developed is agentless. So the nice thing about being agentless, quick and simple and easy to deploy. So a lot of the management capabilities that comes around, managing a protection solution of old, right, they go away because it's an agentless solution. The fact that it's no longer policy-based. We define how you capture information and make copies based on SLAs. So what are the SLAs that the business require? And then how do we turn those into capabilities that keep the business up and running at its max opportunity? The ability to provide instant data recovery. So the fact that a lot of these capabilities are built on top of virtual environments, the ability to pull up a snapshot copy of data because it's stored, the way we store the information allows us to have instant access to the data, to the information. So now the lines of business aren't waiting, right? And the knowledge workers aren't waiting, and the lines of business are continuously working. We do all of this based off of a catalog, and Christian will talk a little bit about the catalog. But at the end of the day, what you end up having is the knowledge workers who are completely satisfied because they're continuously working. You have the line of business and the application developers that have fast access to data and the ability to have templates and self-service is another key part of the solution, to be able to reach in and get the data that they need securely, simply, and easily for the business. And then the CIO who actually has the ability to recognize that now their business is up and running. They have access to all the information that they need. They have very little downtime, and that's not a particular issue.
So Steve, on one of those prior slides, you had MongoDB. Are you using MongoDB as your catalog? Is that?
We are. Yep.
Whoa.
Yep.
That's different. That's way different.
Helps with our scale and modernization.
Oh yeah, I understand.
And that's your product, not the Catalogic one.
That's our product. Yeah. This product, we own this product.
All right.
This is an IBM product. At the line of business and application development level, kind of there's two components, right? They're constantly being hammered by the line of business. I need new ways to be able to find new routes to market. New routes to market means not only new applications I have to develop, but again, back to the ability to do analytics on data and turn that analytics into real-time actionable information. Again, whether it be, the marketing team needs to do this, or, Ed likes to use some examples around how during storms in particular places, Pop-Tarts sell great next to beer, right? So how do you find that out without doing analytics on your data, and then how do you figure out how to make that real-time actionable, turn that information into your stores, into your chains, and be able to have them, kind of set up those types of environments that help sell product quickly, easily, and efficiently. In turn, right, they turn around and they ask IT, hey, I need really fast access to fresh data, right? So it's less buggy, right? And there's no delays in my development. They also recognize that they need to get out of that legacy test and development type of infrastructure that they have, more into a DevOps, agile work environment. And the only way they can really do that is through RESTful API access capabilities, self-service capabilities, right? And being able to control their own destiny, so to speak. Right? And then again, we talked a little bit about the fact that the ability for IT not to be able to deliver on that turns into shadow IT for a lot of these organizations. However, right, when you think about the attributes that are required for the ability to kind of supplant that, it's the end user self-service set of capabilities. And we'll talk about how our roles-based access capabilities within Spectrum Protect Plus help answer a lot of those secure capabilities for the lines of business or development. The ability to deliver data as code, right? So the ability for folks to be able to use that data in their different businesses or applications, however they need to be able to do so. Data obviously still needs to be secure, and the ability, how can I leverage the cloud? Not everybody has all the infrastructure components that they need or want to have and pay for within their environment. So how do I leverage the ability to use the cloud for multiple different things within my business? And we'll talk how Spectrum Protect Plus supports that capability. When
just a question.
Yes.
Okay, the slide before.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the integration with DevOps tools, how this product is integrated with DevOps work cycle for continuous integration and deployment.
Yeah. So the nice thing is as we take copies of the data, we put it in what we call our vSnap repository. Through RESTful APIs, we have the ability to not only make the copy, we can also templatize the reuse to be able to do that. So through an API, you can actually have Chef or Puppet call this API that will then say, put the data in this particular location. All of that stuff can be set up underneath the covers beforehand, such that the line of business or the app developer just has to push a button.
Okay.
Right? And then that helps them integrate. This is really about the access to the data.
Thank you.
Sure. On the competitive side, from you have the line of business, right? So now they feel like they can develop new applications faster, and you have the self-service access capability. They're no longer trying to, fight with IT about what do I need and how do I need it, right? IT can actually set up the ability for these guys to only access just the data sets that they have access to, right? Or just the data sets that they have permission to access, and they have the ability to do so. The infrastructure team is now freed up because they can turn over a lot of that responsibility, and that weight is off their shoulders. They're freed up to do other things, right? And especially if you sit down, you set it, you forget it, it's set up, it's ready to go. They go off and they can go off and do other things. And really, they only have to get involved when there are issues with the product or recovery types of things. And then organizations, the CIO sees that there's no more conflict really within the organization. Business is moving a lot faster, it's a lot smoother, so they have those particular capabilities. And then finally, at the CIO level, right, the buck usually stops with them, right? And there's kind of start with where I started on the first slide, right? They're financially responsible for the business, they're responsible for the competitive advantage and the competitiveness of the business, and they're also responsible at the end of the day that there's no downtime within the business. So anything that they can do from a technology viewpoint into what types of solutions should they actually buy and purchase to keep the business running, right, has a big impact on how the downstream focus within the business supports the different things that they're trying to accomplish. So, their needs are they want a modern infrastructure, right? And that modern infrastructure includes a lot of things, including things like cloud that we talked about, because that does help to reduce costs in a lot of different areas. They need rapid system access, so the faster I can get to data, the faster we can, build new applications. We can get real-time answers to things, that sort of thing. The data reuse capability, so not just protect it. I don't need multiple solutions to do multiple different things. If I can actually get a cost advantage by taking advantage of one solution to be able to do multiple things, especially simply and easily, the whole do more with less. I can do more with my data, and I don't need as many people to deal with that, and that's actually getting more out of the business. And then I also have the need at a high level, at a CIO level, right, for the compliance and regulatory requirements within my business. Maybe it's just straight corporate governance, or maybe it's compliance. But our ability to be able to talk to our downstream products, such as Spectrum Protect, enable us to be able to do things like data offload and long-term data retention to help meet those particular business needs.
So how do you support the data as a service? The RESTful APIs, is that how you
With a RESTful API, yep.
And RESTful APIs, you could take snapshots, you could move the snapshots around, you could
Replicate those
you could schedule the
snapshots.
process if you wanted.
Schedule the backups through the SLAs, schedule the restores through the templates. You can do all.
Anything that can be done in the product can be done through a RESTful API call.
Yep. So now the business is, the CIO sees a lot of value in this type of thing, both from a cost standpoint, a solution standpoint. They can do more things with less people, as we said, right? And the lines of business are being more successful, and IT is that much more successful. So what I want to do is quickly give you a quick overview of the architecture of the solution, so you can see what we're talking about, and Christian will drill into the feature functions of a lot of the different things that I talked about. So at the end of the day, Spectrum Protect Plus is it's a virtual machine. We talked about it supports Hyper-V today and VMware. We'll also support the Acropolis solution from Nutanix here coming up pretty soon. I think you guys, most of you know, IBM has a pretty big relationship with Nutanix, especially around our power solution. It can be deployed as an OVA file or an EXE file. It can run on a hypervisor, or it can run in the cloud. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. We talked about the roles-based access capabilities. So you have a backup administrator that has the ability to set these policies, gold, silver, or bronze, to the data, versus go to each data set or each volume or whatever and use the traditional methodology for setting backup, let's say, policies, for lack of a better word. The solution, because it's agentless, makes API calls into the hypervisor or the physical server where the application sits. From there, it sends the data to the second component of Spectrum Protect Plus. So this is the server, and then we have what's called the vSnap repository. That's kind of where all the data sits. The vSnap repository supports compression and deduplication from a storage efficiency standpoint. When data is in the vSnap repository, you then have the ability to offload this information on whatever interval you want, and you can set it up as a part of the policy to offload that data into Spectrum Protect. Now, right now, the vSnap repository is block storage, right? It doesn't support today backing that data up into a VTL or into a data domain box, or we get a lot of those types of questions. But when you do offload, because we're talking to Spectrum Protect, right, we support anything that Protect supports. So if Protect can write to Cloud Object Storage, then you can store that data long-term on Cloud Object Storage, right? We're looking to evolve that as well. And then you have the ability to replicate that data to a remote data center, so for true disaster recovery, or follow the sun capabilities, as we talked about, within a test dev environment. You have the ability, you do your development on one side, replicate those copies off to another part of the world. They do the testing on that, and then they pass that information back. You have full flexibility to be able to do that.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
based on the architecture so far, don't you get most of those capabilities from most of the software-defined storage providers already anyway?
Storage providers or?
Software-defined storage solutions that are part and parcel of those hypervisor platforms. So what is the added value you bring on top of those?
So for things like you could do an SRM within VMware you're talking about, and be able to vMotion data to another.
No, so if you take VMware with vSAN, for example, most of the capabilities that you explained so far comes from that platform natively anyway.
Sure, and what you end up having in each one of those particular cases is an encapsulated view. You can do that with VMware. Then I've got to go to another thing in another console to be able to do that with Hyper-V. I've got to do that somewhat differently with my application capability, right?
Unless your platform managed those natively within those environments and kept it in its catalog.
Correct, that is correct. But
Right. Instead of moving somewhere else, where if my Spectrum Protect could, for instance, manage the instances from vSAN to vSAN replication, or pure-to-pure replication, or NetApp to NetApp replication from the data store from that perspective, I would need to put it somewhere else to go then do another replication.
Correct. You wouldn't need to.
So do you do that?
do we support their
Do
replication?
you support the primary storage as replication, that way?
We don't. In this particular case, the vSnap repository is talking to a second vSnap repository. We understand our own data changes and that sort of thing to be efficient in replication. We don't necessarily say, hey, all right, we're going to go use our API to talk to a particular replication capability.
Okay.
That's today, but we may evolve as the needs start to grow for the ability to support more both underlying storage as well as more hypervisors. We may have to evolve that model.
How do you guys see yourselves stack up against people like the TOE, InfraScale, that sort of things?
Yeah, so I think a lot of these products are becoming the next generation. I don't see a lot of those folks the ability to be able to reuse the data, right? So I think the key to this product, so far kind of a lot of what we've talked about is making the copy, right? But the ability to then automate the capabilities of bringing up that data in a particular fenced off environment, separate from production, wherever you would like it to be, to then use that data and then track that copy. Even though I haven't backed it up, our catalog will track that copy of information, and at the end of the week, we can provide to you a list and say, look, you have 50 VMs different DBAs and different groups have brought up to be able to use for different capabilities and different applications. What do you want to do with them? Do you want to protect some of them? Maybe some of them are really important, right? You're happy with the development progress you've made. Maybe half of them you don't care about.
Okay.
Tear them down with the push of a button, right? Zerto is very good about, okay, I'll replicate it to another location. Okay, it's there. Now I'm going off and I'm doing something, right?
I kind of agree with Chen. A lot of the features is rather similar to quite a lot of things like Catalogics, for example, ActiveFill, that sort of thing.
So with some of the other
what's the
technologies and
differentiator?
products, you've got to buy the hardware too. It's an appliance based. Some people like that, right? Especially in the SMB space. Just give me the appliance and I want to buy it. In this particular case, it's software only. You can run it on any particular appliance that you want. It's extremely lightweight. It's an OVA file, right? It's very simple, very easy to deploy, and we kind of are controlling both, not only making the copy, but the ability to reuse the copy. I think ActiveFill would say, we can make the copy, but do I templatize the ability to bring it up? Let's say every morning I come in, I want development to have a copy. We can make sure that they have that copy available to them.
Okay, right.
And it's important to make the distinction that when we say data copy, when we're providing that copy, say for a use case like a development team, it's not just the data itself that we provide. It's the infrastructure and the data.
The whole
For instance,
ecosystem.
if it's a virtual application running in production that consists of multiple virtual machines, we'll snapshot those, and then we can spin those up and bring up new virtual machines in, say, a test environment. So you're not just delivering the data set, but you're delivering the actual environment for that to run in, right? And then we manage all that, as Steve said. We track it, and we can automate the cleaning up of that as well. So as an example might be a development organization wants every Monday morning, they want a new development environment spun up from last Friday's backup of production. And in order to do that, you want to make sure, one, that you're not creating VM sprawl across the environment. So Protect Plus can automate the cleanup of the previous week. So part of that policy runs automatically on a schedule every Monday morning before the business week starts. It tears down what was created for the last week and then spins up a new instance of that from the latest snapshot copy or whatever.
I've got to be honest. I mean, the customers. I work with a lot of large enterprise clients. A lot of them have used your products over in the past. The workflow that you're talking about is being served either by a new containerized system in the development world where they're using containers to spin up things. They're not restoring from a snapshot or restoring from a backup. They're just building new and they're doing it every time, or they're building it from within the virtualized templates and VApps. And you can spin up a VApp in a test lab, or there's many different ways to do that outside of a backup environment. I understand that we've got a tool and look what we can do with it, but that's just not the workflows that the enterprises are working at. They don't want your tool to do that. They have development tools to do that. The data management tools. And there's another thing. One more thing, and I'll shut up. But the two types of data that I'm seeing in your environments that are protected by your software are the VM environments, which have a short-lived environment from a backup and recovery perspective. I need to get that application back up quickly. Those are the VMs. But then there's the data behind the VMs, and that's what they need the copies of for development purposes. The apps themselves, you're not recovering. You're just tearing down, rebuilding from scratch with containers and configuration management like Puppet, Chef, whatever. That's what's going on these days. They're not using these tools. So I mean, how do you live in those environments, and what value adding to those types of environments in the way that they want to do it these days? I guess.
Yeah, I think the first point you made is a very valid point. The hardest thing to change in IT, in any particular company is process. It's not technology, right? Technology, I can just plug it in, but people have their own specific processes. I do think one of the ways we add a lot of value is in two ways, right? Number one is the ability to have our APIs within this that can then talk to, so today, right, because things like Docker and that sort of thing don't have the API robustness that a VMware would have, it would be very difficult for a solution like this to be able to talk to that, right? What we can do is we can do volume copies with things like our SCDM solution to be able to help with that with containers. The data flow is very much the same, right? That would be more for the container, but we are looking to be able to support containers in much the same way. We just need to have the same API connectivity that you would need there, right? Number one. So our APIs that have the ability to talk to Chef and Puppet isn't so much about going back to our console to be able to bring up data copies in environments. It's the ability that if I already use Chef and Puppet, and then I got to kind of go do a little bit of manual work to then get the data set underneath it that I might need. Now you can continue that automation, just push the button in Chef. We can then talk with Chef and be able to do that type of thing, right? So that's one other thing. Yeah, so that's kind of how we rationalize a lot of that.
All right, thank you.
So again, we talked a little bit about the data reuse and the ability to copy. You can replicate data into the cloud. You can replicate it, whether it's an on-prem cloud or you want to replicate it to the cloud that the vSnap server sits in. You have the ability to do that. And then from the reuse perspective, you have different roles within the organization that want to be able to reuse data to be able to bring it up, whether recover the data back to the original hypervisor or bring it up for multiple of these different use cases, right? They have the ability to do that both in the cloud or in a remote data center, a remote location. They have the ability and capabilities to be able to do so.
Can your tool actually re-IP virtual machines when they come up? Okay.
Yep,
absolutely.
Keep them separate from production. And, yep. So just a couple of customer testimonials, right? So I tried to choose two that supported both. There's the recovery standpoint, the data protection standpoint. So in a large mine in North America, they had a solution where they had a traditional backup solution, and they needed to be able to, deploy it a lot quicker. They didn't have a lot of skill in the IT department, right? That's not their forte. Their forte was in mining information. And they needed to have the ability to reuse information, one, protected in the mine, two, replicate it back to a central mine where their larger data center was, and then have the ability in that central mine to be able to do reporting against that data to see how production was going and that sort of thing, right? So this is one of the customer testimonials that we have with this solution. Now, I should mention, right, this product was released in Q4 of last year, and the fact that we already have a bunch of customer testimonials and folks that are taking advantage of the software and getting value out of it is pretty telling for what we're trying to do here. The other one is a data reuse scenario. So there was a large convenience store chain that actually worked with this application called PDI, where they needed to report against a particular database. And this was an example of, hey, I want to be able to report against this database. I need to spin one copy out for finance to be able to do some finance information and making sure that they're reporting the right things from that standpoint. I have an analytic team like marketing looking at what's selling, what's not, how do I do inventory, or am I doing the right types of inventory, am I getting in the right stuff? All of that helps to reduce costs of the business. I don't have a lot of stuff sitting on the shelves for too long. So they were able to leverage Spectrum Protect Plus to do that sort of thing. There's also another use case we worked in with a healthcare facility who needed 7 copies of the data every Friday to be able to report to places like the CDC, to report to finance, to report to the healthcare committee within the company, right? All of these different copies, we were able to spin them up, do your testing, do your reporting, do whatever you need to do, and then tear them down at the end of the day Friday, and they had not a lot of data sprawl, not chewed up a lot of capacity within their environment. So really helped to control the capacity and help meet the business needs of what was going on in the business.
So if you look at that particular use case, I don't know if you can talk about level of details, but hypothetically speaking, in a similar scenario.
Which one, the healthcare one?
Yeah, healthcare one, pretty much all three of them.
Yep.
They would sit on some sort of a virtualized platform.
Correct.
Right?
Both of them were VMware.
Which will run on top of a traditional storage vendor like NetApp or EMC or whatever, or a software-defined storage solution. I guess my point earlier was that pretty much every single capability that you referred to as advantages or USPs from your platform would also be available from those native vSphere or VMware ecosystem platform or the storage platform. So for example, taking a clone or taking 254 clones if you have to, with zero downtime or impact, and then automating or orchestrating the destruction of it once the work's been done can be achieved natively and can be integrated with REST API as well.
You're not going to tear down stuff without doing a lot of scripting and a lot of that sort of thing. The catalog keeps track of all that information with a push of a button. You can tear down what you don't want to protect, right? There's no scripting involved. The mining example is a good example, right? They didn't have a lot of technical talent, right? They used the V7000, the IBM V7000, right? So buying a lot of those different product capabilities, like within the V7000 when it came to replication and that sort of thing, they didn't necessarily need to do that, right? They could buy one simple product, Spectrum Protect Plus. It offered them the replication capabilities to get the data set that they needed back to the mine. It helped them set specific policies for specific data sets. So this particular data set has a gold policy. I want to snapshot it every hour. Why? Because I don't want it to have, if something happens, I need quick recovery. This particular data set, right, I can snapshot every day, right? This particular data set replicate every day. Some of this data I want to offload for long-term recovery. You don't get that entire workflow without doing a lot of scripting with a lot of these other.
You may not with IBM storage, but you would with others, is my point. So if you take NetApp, for example, you'll have WFA that'll ship with all their capabilities as predefined workflows. If you take vSAN, you'll have storage policies with VCO or VRO that'll have the workflows that you can just drag and drop to do exactly that. So
Again, this is cross-platform, across.
Sure, this is
Multiple
multi-platform. You go to one console.
okay.
And I think a lot of large customers don't have VMware and NetApp. They have VMware and Hyper-V and something else, and they have various backup products, and they don't want to be married. We've heard a lot of customers say, I don't want my backup processes tied to the hardware that I have today, because that's going to change in a year. So I agree all that stuff is always available, but they want it centralized.
I think the other challenge of backing up with the same storage that you're using for primary storage, there's a risk there if something breaks. Yeah, so you want to. I think there's a rational reason to have some other storage used for protection of the data. And yeah, you could do it all, obviously with snapshots on the storage system, but in the end, it's not as well. It's too risky.
Depends on the data. If you're talking about the applications in the front end, that, first of all, they're only
They're
for availability.
transient, yes.
And especially those when you're dealing in a new containerized world where you don't care about restoring, you're just going to tear it down,
Fire up more.
rebuild it, and that's what you're doing these days. Then the only thing you care about is the data in the long term, and I agree you need that on a separate thing, but that's only part of the use case for this, and you don't really need instant recovery for most of that stuff. So
We're finding more and more that the instant recovery capabilities, I would agree with you, but we're finding more and more that the instant recovery capabilities, because I can do it, is becoming, I want to do it, right? I think a lot of the reason why it's not as prevalent as it is today is because it's a little difficult to do that kind of thing. Whereas today, I can hit a button, spin up a copy, my application is running, my data set is there, I'm not impacting production, I can do 10 different things, and by the way, I'm not chewing up a ton of space and upsetting a lot of different organizations. I can easily tear it down if I need to. We're finding a lot of companies when we tell that story and talk about it, and this is why I try to evolve the conversation from protection to data reuse, because I think the ability for businesses to unlock that trapped potential is exactly what they want to try to do. The question is they never had the ability. I think the thing I said before, the hardest thing to change is process, not technology. Now that they can actually buy a simple technology, very cost effective, and we'll talk about licensing at the end here, they can do that simply and easily and quickly. I'll give it a shot. I can do that. That's helpful to my business, right?
When you use the example of having your developers being able to restore data out of production into their development environments, do you have the ability to sanitize that data for PHI, PII information?
So today we don't do data masking, but in a release coming here in mid-year, we will be able to do data masking. So I can bring up a copy of a database with Social Security numbers. It looks like a database with Social Security, but the Social Security numbers are scrubbed.
that's going to be Oracle only, though, isn't it?
Yes, that's
Yes,
going to be Oracle.
It's because Oracle provides its own interface for doing that, so it can go to backup vendors. Microsoft doesn't do that yet.
Right. So we can talk to the APIs to be able to do that. That's a good point. Yep. So again, I'll let Christian get up and start talking about the technology pieces, but again, really trying to promote the data reuse set of capabilities. The ability, one, use your data protection solution to do multiple things, helps to lower your costs. We can improve your business SLAs, right? Because we're aligning the data sets to specific SLAs. Elevate your staff, right? The ability to allow them to go off and do other things because they don't necessarily have to sit and focus on one particular thing around data protection. take more advantage of my data, right, and enable the cloud set of capabilities.